strangulation. Okay. Then, as I have already told, closed loop obstruction, proximal and distal points are closed. Okay. In most cases, like volvulus, hernias, this is the usual scenario, the closed loop obstruction. Okay. And the gangrene, these cases are usually gangrene, while the vessels which are supplying this part are thrombosed. Okay. So there are various other consequences. Okay. Now, what is internal hernia? One of the less common but very important cause for intestinal obstruction. Okay, so there are some potential defects within the abdominal wall, like the defect in the peritoneal cavity, in the mesentery, in the retroperitoneal fossa. Okay, sometimes into the foramen of Winslow. Okay, sometimes in the broad ligament, in the sigmoid and lateral wall of the cecum and duodenum. There are fossas where the ball may go and get trapped. Okay, so these are called internal hernias. Okay, then bolus obstruction. This is obvious, mechanical, or some objects, hard and big objects which pass through the lumen, and at some part they get impacted and cause obstruction. Okay, like gallstones, food bolus, okay, tricho or phytobizos, and sometimes ball of worms. Okay, then pathophysiology of band and adhesion, the most common cause for obstruction. Okay, so usually these post-operative bands and adhesions, they occur in the post-operative raw areas in the peritoneum as well as the bowel wall. Okay, this may be because of the suture materials as well. Okay, then sometimes in conditions such as tuberculosis, post-operative intraperitoneal abscess, post-operative radiations. Okay, these lead to formation of the adhesions. Okay, so one loop is adhered into the other loop, and the ball may result in obstruction. Okay, and initial stage the adhesions are soft, fibrinous. Okay, later on they become dense and difficult to separate. Okay, that's not only the acquired bands. Sometimes we may have congenital bands like vitellointestinal duct band. Okay, sometimes sting band may form because of the bacterial peritonitis. Okay, sometimes the greater momentum itself gets adhered to some other part of the peritoneal cavity and it acts like a band. Okay, these are the common conditions. See in this picture. Okay, this is the adhesion. Two ball loop are adhered so densely. Okay, this is the adhesion forming a single mass of the ball loop. Okay, and these are the band, long band tissues. Okay, and the ball loop, they get entangled in these bands and they get obstructed. Okay, then intersusception. This is another very common condition, especially in the children. Okay, so intersusception, this is a condition where one part of the lumen, ball lumen, enters or invaginates into the other part of the ball. Okay, this is also called telescoping a proximal ball to the distal ball. Okay, you can see in the picture the mechanism of telescoping. You can also check in the YouTube how the telescoping occurs. Okay, you can find very interesting videos. Okay, then it's very common in children. Okay, very rarely you can encounter this in adults. Okay, so intersusception itself maybe acts as a short note. Okay, you just check in your book and try to find out some important points. Okay, though I have mentioned most important points I have mentioned in the slide. Okay, you check in your book some points which are very important regarding intersusception. Okay, like parts of the intersusception, causes, especially the causes I have mentioned here. Okay, like hypoplasia Pierce patch is the initial point. That is secondary to any infections like upper respiratory tract infection, acute gastroenteritis. Okay, these kind of infections lead to hypoplasia Pierce patch. That part of the ball becomes less peristaltic and there is telescoping. Okay, sometimes you may have pathological lead point like Makos diverticulum, polyp, duplication cyst, Genesis, colon purpura, and sometimes appendix. Okay, usually after 2 years of the age, many patients will have pathological lead point, like more than one third. Okay, in younger children, you don't find the pathological lead point. Okay, adults invariably will have lead point because of the tumor. Okay, so remember most of the adults, more than 90%, they have lead point. Children don't have the lead point, and children beyond 22 years of age, 30 to 33% of them may have lead point. Okay, so ileocolic is most common, but ileocolic, colocolic, okay, there are different type of the interception. Okay, in children, it is usually the non-operative management, hydrostatic management, or pneumatic or manual reduction. Okay, while in adults, this treatment is surgical. Okay, then another concept of volvulus. I'll briefly describe what is volvulus. Okay. Which is actually we are discussing the pathophysiology. Okay, so twisting or axial rotation of the part of the ball around its mesentery or around its blood vessel. Okay, and mainly in the volvulus, the first event that occurs is compromise of the blood vessel which is supplying that part of the ball. Okay, so there is vascular compression followed by ischemia. Okay, so volvulus is also very acute emergency condition. Okay, so there may be because of the primary malnotation of the bowel, or sometimes abnormal attachment, congenital abnormal attachment, okay, or sometimes bands. Okay, these may cause valvulus. In secondary causes, again, adhesion bands, and sometimes stoma like colostomy, ileostomy make such stomas, and ball gets valvulus around this stoma. Okay, sometimes more than one segment of the ball is has been involved in the valvulus, and that condition is called compound valvulus. Okay, so till now, are you with me? Please.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, so we'll continue. Now, clinical features, most of the clinical feature we have already discussed when we are discussing the pathophysiology, but just to summarize, the four cardinal features of intestinal obstruction, which you have to remember. Okay, abdominal pain, vomiting, distension, and constipation. Always remember these four symptoms, though there are so many others, but remember these four. And among these four, depending on the site of the obstruction, level of the obstruction, whether it is jejunal, I small or ileal, low small bowel, or colonic obstruction, one or the other symptom may be pronounced compared to other. Okay, so this concept you need to understand. Okay, so I already discussed the location, depending on the location of obstruction, duration of obstruction, underlying pathology, and intestinal ischemia, whether it is there or not, these symptoms will vary. Okay, and the severity of symptoms also will vary. Okay, like if the patient is having intestinal ischemia, the patient will have pain. The pain will be severe and it will be continuous pain. If there is no ischemia, then patient will have pain, but it will be colicky type of intermittent pain. Okay, then duration of obstruction, like if the patient is having obstruction for just few hours, 4 or 5 hours, maybe the patient is not having strangulation, the pain, degree of pain may be less. Okay, if the obstruction is there for more than 24 hours, then the patient most probably is having strangulation of the bowel. So all the symptoms will be pronounced. Okay, and depending on location, duration, and underlying pathology, there may be other symptoms. Okay, like if there is strangulation, if there is malignancy, you may have symptoms related to malignancy like blood in the stool. Okay, sometimes if there is strangulation and ischemia, you may have a patient with high grade fever, the patient is toxic. Okay, so there may be other added symptoms, but just remember these four cardinal symptoms of intestinal obstruction. Okay, now, this I have already discussed, so I don't think we need to elaborate much. Okay, but just remember that usually in adynamic intestinal obstruction, this abdominal pain is not very common. Okay, usually doesn't occur at all. You can say that it does not occur. Okay, other symptoms like constipation, distension, vomiting may occur, but abdominal pain is usually present only in dynamic obstruction. Okay. The vomiting I have already discussed. It is more pronounced in proximal obstruction. Okay, distension is more pronounced in distal obstruction. Okay, then constipation usually for lower obstruction, constipation is the main symptom, but it will not apply in certain conditions like Rectus hernia, only the part of the ball is herniated. Okay, then gallstone obstruction. Okay, then mesenteric vascular occlusion and obstruction associated with pelvic abscesses. Okay, in these conditions, constipation will not be there. Instead, in pelvic abscess, though the patient is having obstruction, the patient may have diarrhea. Okay, even in rectus, the patient may have diarrhea. Okay, so in certain exceptional situations, constipation may not be the presenting feature. Okay. Now, dehydration. Ultimate sequelae of intestinal obstruction is dehydration and all the electrolyte imbalance because of the loss of the electrolytes in the vomiting. Okay. Then secondary polycythemia, if there is prolonged obstruction and prolonged dehydration. Okay. Hypokalemia, as I have already told, and pyrexia, fever. I have already told. It is the symptom which is suggestive of onset of ischemia as well as intestinal perforation secondary to obstruction. Okay, so how a patient with a strangulated obstruction may present, or how to differentiate strangulation from simple obstruction. Okay, so severe constant pain. Okay, initial colicky intermediate pain turns into severe constant abdominal pain. There may be fever on examination. There may be tachycardia, tenderness with rigidity and rebound tenderness. Okay, and the patient will be in shock. Okay. Then intersusception. What are the key pertinent clinical symptoms? Patient will have colicky, severe abdominal pain, but last very few minutes, and they reoccur repeatedly. Okay, a child presented with recurrence of short duration pain. Okay, severe short duration pain and recurring in short intervals. Remember, this is the usual presentation. Then the child screams and draws up the leg. Okay, because of the pain, the child may pass red current like stool. Okay, because of the blood and mucus which are mixed and form the current like stool. Okay, the patient may also present with lump in the left upper abdomen and empty right ileal fossa. This is also known as sign of dance. Okay. Now, general examination, there is not much to be understood in this part. Usually, you have to do all the clinical examination, including general and vital examination. Okay, you have to especially look for the sign of dehydration like tachycardia, hypotension, mucous membranes, skin turgor, all those things. Okay, on inspection, never forget to look for the scars, for the mass and arterial orifices when you are suspecting intestinal obstruction. Okay, then other things are usual. Okay, then investigations. Okay, the general investigation, it applies to any surgical emergency. Okay, you do all the routine blood tests to assess the general condition of the vital organs. Okay, so what are those tests? Complete blood count. Okay, renal function, electrolyte, liver function test. Okay, sometimes coagulation profile you may have to do. So these are the common investigation you'll do. But what you'll find or what you expect in these investigations, especially you expect leukocytosis and neutrophilia, which will suggest strangulation. Okay, you may suspect hyperkalemia or as well as hypokalemia. Okay, then you do the plain X-ray. This is the most important and diagnostic. Okay, so what you see in the abdominal X-ray, this is written. There are so many things written. I'll describe this in the picture. Okay, so in acute intestinal obstruction, we do two X-rays. One is spine like this and other is erect. Okay. And always remember, when somebody asks you what is the standard, gold standard investigation for diagnosing acute intestinal obstruction, you should always say abdominal X-ray. Okay. Many students, they think that when we use this fancy term like gold standard, okay, most appropriate, then you think of some very costly and expensive and um, very sophisticated investigations. Okay, but particularly for acute intestinal obstruction, we don't need anything else. We just need simple abdominal X-ray in two postures, supine and erect. Okay, so in supine we look for the dilated bowel loops. Okay, and we identify whether this is small ball or large ball, okay, jejunum or ileum. Then in the erect, we look for the air fluid level. Okay, then there are some investigations which are helpful for particular diagnosis, like for interception. Ultrasound is very good. Okay, so in ultrasound you can find this kind of concentric rings. This is called do not sign. Do not sign. Okay, on examination intraoperatively we can see this part of the ball ileum is going inside this cecum. Okay, this is cecum in ascending column. Okay, so this ileum has entered up to the ascending up to the hepatic flexor. See, up to here. Okay, this is intercession. You can see also in this picture. Okay, the ball has entered. Okay, this is the schematic diagram. So in interception, when you are suspecting interception in children, more than the X-ray, ultrasound is helpful. Okay, then treatment. Usually the treatment of acute intestinal obstruction is straightforward. Main part of the treatment is resuscitation. Okay, so your investigation and primary treatment go hand in hand. Okay, so you as you attend the patient in the emergency, you start IV line, you start IV fluids, you give the patient some analgesic for pain relief, you give IV antibiotics, then you put a nasogastric tube for GI drainage, okay, NG tube. Then you put a Foley's catheter, okay, for urinary output monitoring. Then after the reports are available, if the patient's electrolyte are then you have to supplement the electrolytes. Okay, so this is the initial resuscitation protocol. Okay, then if the patient is in shock, you give lot of fluid. Sometimes you have to give inotropes and bring the blood pressure and pulse to normal range. You stabilize the patient. Then the definitive treatment is done, that is relief of the obstruction. Usually the treatment is surgical. Okay, so after resuscitation, after the electrolyte are managed, after the pain is relieved, after the vitals, especially the blood pressure and pulse, they are stabilized, then we take the patient to theater and we do midline laparotomy. Remember, from GP sternum up to the symphysis pubic, we give big incision, we evaluate the whole of the GI tract, and sometimes you may find volvulus. Okay, this is the volvulus, grossly dilated sigmoid, but the ball is healthy. This is also a picture of volvulus, but the ball is unhealthy. This is strangulated ball, this is healthy ball. Okay. So depending on the finding, you have to do the surgical treatment. Okay, you may have to resect the ball. You do resection and anastomosis. Sometimes you do resection as well as stoma formation. Okay, and there are a few things you need to remember. There is a saying, very good saying, that the sun should not rise or set in case of AIF. Okay, please understand this concept. Should not rise. If you see the patient in the morning, it should be treated by evening, or if you see the patient in the evening, this the surgical management should be completed beyond next morning. Okay, so sun should not rise or should not set in case of obstruction. That is the meaning of that saying. Okay, midline laparotomy, as I have already told, then you look and evaluate whole of the GI tract and identify the site and cause of the obstruction. Then the important part is to assess the viability of the ball. Okay, so there are 7 P's: pink color, prick the mesentery and look for the bleeding; peristalsis, if the peristalsis is present; pulsation over the mesenteric vessels. Okay, peritoneum is shiny; on palpation the muscle is firm; in dead or strangulated ball the muscle is flabby. Okay, then pressure rings. If you press, then there is a indentation sign, but it will immediately disappear in healthy ball. Okay, so depending on the pathologies like volvulus or carcinoma, adhesion band, interception, hernia, whatever, we do the procedure accordingly. So we may have to do adhesiolysis, band release, resection, sometimes diversion, stoma only, sometimes bypass. Okay, so just remember that depending on the finding, intraoperative finding, we have to deal accordingly. Okay, for aerodynamic obstruction, it is always medical condition and the treatment is also medical. Okay, so with that, I come to the end of my class. If there are any questions, how many of you are still remaining? Let me check. So 96. Very good. Good. So are there any queries? It's so difficult to communicate with you people on this online classes. I hope these classes are helpful. Okay. Anything? No response? Okay, good, good, good. I am seeing your comments. Good, good. Okay. So you don't have any questions? Won't have. No problem. Okay. Later on, when you come to word posting, we will discuss again, and it will understand. You just go and check in your book. Okay. Try to